Hi all! The president of Princeton University made the following observation as he spoke on the need for civil discourse in a truth-seeking campus. Critics are right to warn that excessive sensitivity or political correctness will stifle the vitality of collegiate life. All of us should try to be tactful when we speak about sensitive subjects, such as race or affirmative action. But we should also do our best to forgive those who give offense unintentionally. If we are quick to take umbrage at other people's remarks, we can never have the candid, unsettling conversations that college life requires. Unfortunately, the tone of public discourse, especially on social media, tends to ignore his call for tact and the willingness to forgive. And as followers of Jesus Christ, we have the opportunity to be radically distinct by speaking the truth with resolute yet gentle Christ-reflecting humility. Consider Peter's advice to believers about how they are to respond to persecution in 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 8 to 12. Finally, all of you have unity of mind, sympathy, brotherly love, a tender heart, and a humble mind. Do not repay evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, bless. For to this you were called, that you may obtain a blessing. For whoever desires to love life and see good days, let him keep his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. Let him turn away from evil and do good. Let him seek peace and pursue it. For the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayer. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. These verses are all the more amazing when you recall that this same Peter cut off Malchus's ear in defense of Jesus. Now he's telling us not to repay evil for evil. Certainly it proves that knowing Christ will really transform a person, because Peter's words echo Jesus' teaching in the Sermon on the Mount. This is not to say that Jesus intends us to be doormats or to be against the use of all force, even when warranted in defense of what is right. Peter is emphasizing the proper demeanor and behavior of those who have, through faith in Jesus Christ, experienced God's redemptive love. Our experience and continuing enjoyment of God's love and grace must motivate us to show the same love and grace to those who oppose us, in the same way that Jesus prayed for his tormentors as he was being crucified. Peter may have been slow to get the message, but God's transforming grace enabled him to come around. Peter's admonition begins with a word to believers about how they are to relate with one another. They are to demonstrate the character of Christ towards one another because they have been united to Christ. It is a sad reality that perhaps one of the greatest hindrances to Christian witness is that a lot of churches are festering cesspools of resentment, pride, and envy. We cannot tolerate ungodly attitudes in the church and in our own lives. The Christian life is hard, and the church needs to be a haven of comfort, loving correction, and encouragement as truth is spoken in love. And since Peter is addressing everyone in the church, making the church a haven of comfort is a communal effort, requiring that every believer make every effort, trusting in God's empowering grace to grow in Christ-likeness of character. By the same token, Peter admonishes believers to demonstrate the character of Jesus in their dealings with unbelievers, and in particular, in response to those who actively oppose them for their commitment to Jesus. Peter is not advocating mere passive non-retaliation. Rather, he tells believers to respond to evil by blessing the evildoers and doing good. It is the same response Paul advocates in Romans 12, which he summarizes in verse 21, in 12:21, by saying, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." The motivation for blessing those who revile us, according to Peter, is that we were called to this action so that we may obtain a blessing. To support his contention, he cites Psalm 34:12-16, which points out that life, in all its goodness, is to be had by doing good and pursuing peace. This passage tells us that the good life is not about ease or comfort. Rather, the truly good life is a life that reflects a right relationship with God. Moreover, Peter's perspective is eschatological. God has promised believers an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, kept in heaven for them. So Peter is calling on believers to respond to God's gracious promises by living up to their calling. And we demonstrate our hope in God by overcoming evil with good. It is the way we reflect the character of Jesus. And we are able to do it because of God's gracious work in our lives. Integral to this motivation is the understanding that God is the righteous judge who sees all and who will set all things right in the end. It is this same perspective that drives Jesus' demeanor on the cross. In 1 Peter 2:23, Peter points out that when Jesus was reviled, he did not revile in return. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but continued entrusting himself to him who judges justly. In other words, Jesus did not try to get even and was able to behave rightly because he knew God would vindicate him and punish those who were doing him wrong. This is the same perspective Paul takes in Romans 12 when he tells believers to do good to their enemies instead of trying to get even, because of God's promise. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. So the commitment to do good to those who do you evil is an expression of trust in the sovereign Lord of the universe. To take matters into your own hands means that you don't think God is able to do what he says he will do. And is God able to execute justice? Well, consider this. The Roman Empire tried to stamp out Christianity. In response, Christians willingly died rather than deny Jesus Christ. And they did not try to get even. Instead, they entrusted themselves to God, the righteous judge. The Roman Empire is now a historical curiosity. Christianity is still around. The challenge to trust in God's character and promises and to express that confidence by courteous truth-telling remains today. According to Elliot Clark, many times people won't be compelled to listen to our message on account of sound arguments or persuasive evidence. Instead, their ears will only open when we demonstrate inexplicable kindness, meekness, and compassion. So friends, let's represent Jesus faithfully by reflecting his character. Let's lead the way by speaking truthfully with gentleness and humility in all our speech and in all our social media postings.